Hi everyone and welcome to the channel. In today's video we're going to ask a question which sounds really simple but actually has some science behind it, and that is, do ball pythons like to be held? So of course I've got a snake that hates being held for the video. This is Blake. She's a female albino clown. I think it was just albino clown, I can't remember what else. Anyway, you can tell right away from her kind of grip around my arm here that she doesn't really like being handled. But we're going to get into, why some snakes do like it and why some snakes don't like it, kind of a little ways along in the video. But first, I do need to cover something and just kind of come clean about a term, really. And that is the idea that snakes enjoy anything. Now, scientifically, being from a kind of a data and science background myself, I don't really like it when I hear someone who says their snake likes something or loves something or enjoys doing something, because really when you look at their brain structure, I mean, there's not a lot going on, and it's very hard to determine how they feel about things, whether they do enjoy things or not. But what I can honestly tell you is that we can discuss whether they feel the need to do stuff and whether they feel a benefit, like they're fulfilling an instinctive need to do something. And where this fits in with being held and handling is, does your snake feel the need to come out and explore? Does it feel the need to, periscope and smell for scents on the air, to smell for other snakes and survey its surroundings? And obviously, there are ways that you can tell. I was hoping Blake would move around a bit, but she's obviously not interested. But yeah, you can still tell, even if you want to be purely scientific and you really want to do things by the book, you can still tell whether your snake is fulfilling some needs by coming out and exploring and handling. And of course, exercise is always good anyway, so that's kind of a given. As you can see, they're not that keen on exercise, but it's still something good for them to do. So before I go any further in this video, I did want to cover just briefly when you shouldn't handle your ball python. There's a few times. The main one that I really want to remind everyone of is when you first get a ball python, if either you've got it from a courier or you've got it from a pet store, you bring it home, it's settling into its new environment, its new housing, maybe even you're giving it rats from a different supplier, even though you wouldn't want to try and feeding it for the first few days. But there's new scents, there's all kinds of stuff going on. And really, I would not handle a new snake unless it's for a very quick health check. When you first get it, I wouldn't handle a new snake for a week. That's just a good rule to follow, just to let it settle in. If you do let it settle in for a week, you're much more likely to get it feeding more quickly afterwards. So that's the first one. Obviously, another one is if it's in shed. If you see that your snake's belly has gone pink, its colour's gone dark, its eyes are turning milky, and it's getting ready to shed, even if it doesn't show any signs of defensiveness or hissing or anything like that at that time, this is a time where it will be stressed and it will be dealing with, who knows how much discomfort. I really couldn't tell you how uncomfortable it must feel to have, several layers of your skin detached. It might be quite uncomfortable. So during shed, again, we're not going to handle them unless, of course, they tip their water bowl over and the whole, I'm scaring her now. Unless the whole, enclosure is flooded or they've made a huge mess, then you can clean them. Another time is, of course, when they're sick. If you have a snake that is sick, again, it's going to be uncomfortable, and hopefully you're getting veterinary treatment for it. But also, when they are sick, their immune system is just more sensitive than ever before. And the last thing you want to do is expose them to fluctuations in temperature, so get them out of a nice warm vivarium or tub and take them into an air-conditioned room for 10-15 minutes when they're trying to use all their heat resources they can to fight an illness. That's a bad idea. So that's pretty much it for when not to handle. Again, if one's breeding eggs as well, if you've got a female sitting on eggs, again, that's not a good time to handle. But aside from that, now we're going to move on to how to know if your ball python, as I said, enjoys or at least feels the need to have some handling. And one of the surefire signs that they don't is behaviour like Blake here, who is curled around my wrist like she's trying to snap it and doesn't want to move. She's barely even flicking her tongue right now because she's uncomfortable. And don't get me wrong, she's going to be okay. This is a short video, right? It's not that bad of a thing to do to hold her for the purpose of demonstrating. But a snake that acts like this, when you take it out, it's not enjoying handling in any sense of the word, scientific or otherwise. And it's not doing anything that suggests it's getting a benefit out of it, right? She's not going off and exploring. She's not periscoping. She's not looking around. Whereas Bobby, my oldest snake, he'd probably try and wander off by now and he'd be looking around the room. And in fact, sometimes Bobby, when I have him out on my lap, after a while, he'll periscope and he'll sit there and watch TV. So, he's getting what I'm saying is that he's getting a behaviour out of it. And other snakes as well. I'm thinking of Spirit in particular, my fire ivory ball python. Almost every time she comes out, she periscopes. And she doesn't even need to be on me. She's perfectly comfortable being on the carpet, on the rug in the middle of the living room, just periscoping and exploring the room and looking around. She doesn't try and hide. She stays out in the open and she investigates stuff and she smells stuff. And, like I say, she's doing behaviours. She's doing behaviours that show you that she's getting something out of it aside from just exercise. And that's really kind of how you can tell. Obviously, if you have a snake, also a ball python that rolls into a ball when you take it out and it doesn't come out that ball after a few minutes, that's another surefire sign that it's not enjoying the situation. So I guess at the same time as I'm talking about this, it is important for me to mention that I keep most of my snakes in rack and tub setups and I work from home. So that's kind of a unique situation where I feel it's good for them to get some exercise, to be taken out of their enclosures and explore and be handled regularly. So they're out a lot. If you have yours in a larger vivarium or a bigger setup than I have mine in, and you aren't at home as much, you might only really feel that they need to be handled once a week, whereas some of mine might get handled almost every day, if I'm doing videos in particular. And my example, because, like I say, they need... Sorry, I think I just touched the microphone. Because they need, exercise and I'm keeping them in small enclosures and I've got this weird combination where I work at home, I get them out probably more than most of you would want to. So that kind of covers like their body language and whether they really enjoy it. But now I'm trying to unwrap Blake. You see, this is a really good sign of an uncomfortable snake. She feels safe clinging to my arm, so she's not going to move for the rest of this video. I will try. She's really pretty, actually. I wanted to show everyone. Never mind. Anyway, so just towards the end of this video, I kind of want to cover why ball pythons have this variation. There's kind of a misunderstanding about this, and there's people that try and say you've got to teach them, and you can kind of handle them, and you can teach them to get more used to you, to get less head shy, to get less frightened. But there are always snakes in ball pythons that have these kind of varying personality types where some are much more curious, like Spirit, who I mentioned, and some are much more shy, like Blake. And some of these, I've had them for years and they never change, no matter how much you handle them. The ones that are defensive, they will stop biting quite quickly, or hissing or whatever, So in that respect, they do learn. But the ones that are very shy tend to stay very, very shy. And the ones that are outgoing and curious tend to stay very curious. And the reason for this is that there are varying degrees of neophilia in reptiles, birds, and mammals as well. In wild animals that aren't super intelligent, animals that I'd say have a lot of instinctive behaviours built in. Neophilia is the displaying of neophilic behaviour, meaning that they like to investigate new things. They like to go towards new things and explore and find new things. And in the wild, this plays a crucial role in a lot of reptiles, like lizards, and especially more so in birds. It plays a crucial role in finding food, finding mates, doing better than your flock mates or your conspecifics, your other species members, in finding new things. And that can increase survival. But the downside is that the more you explore, the more neophilic you are, neophiliac rather, the more you're exposed to predation. So you've got kind of instinctive levels of neophobia or neophilia built into the brains of our snakes, and it seems to be determined genetically with some variation, just like the colour mutations and pattern and stuff like that. So a snake like Blake in the wild, it's entirely possible that she would be very shy, spend most of her time hiding, be very secretive. She might find less food than other snakes, but she's less likely to get caught by the predator. Whereas Spirit, going out in the sun, looking around, periscoping all day and exploring, or whatever time of day she might do it, if she was really that curious in the wild, she would be finding more prey. She might find better mates, and this would possibly help her survival. But in other terms, it would make her, more exposed to predation and more likely to get killed off by another animal. So this is really a balance that happens in evolution, in the behaviour of a lot of animals. It's been extensively studied in birds, but not so extensively studied in reptiles. But basically, this is how evolution works, this is how nature works. Some are born more shy, sometimes it doesn't help them. Some are born more curious, and sometimes that can help them, but sometimes it doesn't. It's all a balance, and this is how evolution works. There probably is a perfect balance between neophilia and neophobia, but who knows what it is. These are the games that are played through genetics over millions and millions of years. So like I said, there's a bit more science that goes into it than simply, do they like it or not? And it does get a bit complicated, and this is stuff, like I said, it hasn't been studied too much in reptiles, so your thoughts on this are just as valuable as mine or anyone else's. So just before I end this video, I just wanted to say on another note, how long you should handle them and how often. Like I said, if they're getting enough exercise and they've got a bigger enclosure than I keep mine in, and you don't work from home, there's nothing wrong with only handling them, once a week, particularly if they don't seem to really take to it like Blake here. But if you have them in a rack setup or a tub setup, I would encourage you to handle them more for 10 minutes at a time, maybe 15 minutes max if they're okay, if they're exploring. When they start to try and get away from you constantly and hide behind stuff or wriggle free from your hands, it's time to put them back. So hopefully this has explained some of the weird ball python behaviour to you, and hopefully you found it interesting. But as always, if you have specific questions or comments about handling and best practices, what you should do, how often to handle, stuff like that, anything you feel like I haven't really covered it fully, please do get in touch. And as always, please do like and subscribe and come back next week. Thank you.